Thank you very much. As Roman said, I work in INCIBE, and my passion is the same as yours. I've been lucky enough to work for many years, not only in the technical area, but also in coaching for teams, in this case in cybersecurity. And we were lucky enough to win some of the European championships. Some of you are here, of that team are here. The challenge Roman gave me is to talk about talent. This is a meeting, we're all techies, so the title is an approach to hardware. They want me to talk about what INCIBE is about. For those who don't know, it's the National Institute of Cybersecurity. We basically help people, citizens and companies, mainly SMEs, but also strategic sectors. Maybe you weren't able to learn about this legal issue, but since September last year, we shared the reporting of incidents, of events, the typical public services. I will not focus my presentation on incidences or events, but the part that we develop also, which is the promotion of talent, promotion of R&D and promotion of talent, basically, of people who are looking for a job, and this is a growing sector. Why did we focus on that line? Because, as Roman was saying, it is an ecosystem, and the ecosystem changes, or we will be unable to provide what the ecosystem needs to develop. So I will split my presentation in 4 sections. First will be of data. I hope you've had a good breakfast, because I have a lot of data and information for you. I think it is important to have a better context to understand the headlines, basically, and to realize that many of the headlines are also fake. And then I will have a proposal for you, an algorithmic proposal, some technical part here. So I will just open up a transformer. This metaphor is good because it allows me to see the various components and solutions we have to tackle that solution. An electronic circuit, which is apparently simple, but is the equivalent to the various measures we have to implement to transform the ecosystem. The experiment was developed this past weekend, precisely with the members of the talent selection, and we will see what we got out of it and conclusions. So why do I start with this question? Because we have doubts whether we will need not only more people, but more knowledge for the people who are at present working on this. Many people are developing, like vehicles, for instance, and we need maybe more people to develop vehicles, but we may need more knowledge. On the other hand, there are many people who are not so techies developing vehicles, but they are in HR and who will need to engage people with specific skills. We also have to transform the HR people. So in general, there are many points besides these shown on the screen, but in order to have safer vehicles, for instance, when they're connected, or nuclear energy systems that are connected, we will need more knowledge, possibly more people, but also there are many areas, many bullet points we have to address: regulation, policies, etc. The studies are good to have, and each study has its own methodology. I invite you to check each one in depth. I will give you an overview. So we need many professionals in cybersecurity. Well, we have many studies. We can either give them credit or not. But where do we need these professionals? Some of these studies, the one of ISD square that is shown in the screen, there is a region in Asia that needs a lot of people because it is associated to new emerging technologies or needs in emerging countries. On the other hand, we have this graph on the right that is a survey of about 800 companies, multinationals, and this means that there are many places where people are needed. In other places there is a surplus of people, and in other areas there is a surplus or a lack of specific skills. It is a fact that many people request more government investments. I think that this is being done in all countries, but probably not enough. On the other hand, a ranking of jobs in cybersecurity is highly valued. An important topic is that someone thought about how much it takes to recover someone from a job. There are HR studies that identify that an individual with a qualification that does not require high technical skills has an overcost of 17%. But if this person is qualified, it's the overcost of 213%. If he's in a key position of the organization, it's 400%. There are startups that are focusing on retention talent, and they're getting a lot of investments because things have to be done, new things, to retain talent. There's another statistics, which is the happiness statistics. In Spain, even being, well, this is also a survey, a public survey, work happiness report. This is a survey with various types of methodologies. Spain is not too bad. We're in post 30 out of 132, and since 2005 it seems that the countries who have become less happy, Venezuela obviously, but we are not so far away from them, so something is going wrong. And wages, for example, are in the middle of the range. This could be good, this could be bad. Also, there is cybersecurity issues. Each one can draw his own conclusions. In the case of expansion of, it seems, well, this newspaper, Expansión, makes surveys on employment, as you can see. If we add taxes to that, it seems that taxes depend on the country. Some countries have a high mean wage, but with high taxation, which halves the wages. In this case, we seem to be more or less on the average. There's another survey on the right that seems that the cybersecurity vis-a-vis other sectors of employment is slightly above the average. As a country, well, it seems that in our country we have ratings. We have to take this with a pinch of salt because investors take heed to these surveys. So we could be better off, but we could also be worse off. Growth studies. It seems that in 2014 it was said that cybersecurity had a sustainable growth, CAGR of 10-12%, and in 2019 this is a sustainable 12% growth. But in the details, if we go to the cybersecurity sector crossed with the automotive sector, we have a growth of 72%. So it does grow, but we have to take into account the different segments. So cybersecurity in some sectors may have more opportunities for growth. In our sectors, the IP sectors, we have people who are within the top 6 suppliers of clouds. They're the top earners as well. We made a query in our intelligence system to see what information we have about these events. They have very high fees, top companies, and let's see if within their knowledge about what their clients are holding in the cloud. If the news talk about information leaks, there could be many more than publicized. So why can't we help these people? These are our clients, many of them SMEs who publish services possibly unassisted in configuration and do poor configuration. But if we can identify these things, why don't we give them a hand? What I'm driving at is that we could some companies are collecting huge fees, but they're not providing adequate services to their clients. Another interesting data is the ethics and integrity. It seems that the recent surveys indicate that we are losing the confidence in our leaders as well as in integrity, and that private interests predominate over general or public interest. This also has a worrisome characteristic. Also about the essential skills for long-term success. I will talk about this later. Interpersonal skills, awareness and motivation, and ethics and integrity. These are the three main topics. This could be rated to or correlated with the happiness rating I showed you earlier. Why are people leaving their jobs in cybersecurity? Because they want to go to a sector that has better wages, also due to their career development. So what is the value chain for those who haven't worked in the industry sector and are in a services company or a manufacturer or for the government, certification systems, or with a client? In the end, if you want to change the environment, you have to change many things. Investors have to know what cybersecurity is about, what is their growth indicator. Research centers and universities also have to take a step forward. Here we're manufacturing things, but they're not sold. It doesn't matter what you manufacture if you don't sell. So everything is related. And here I would like to indicate a few of the afterthoughts that I have collected from worldwide investors about risk capital that is investing in Spain in cybersecurity, and people of our country. They were telling me that one of the main reasons is that the foreign investors value highly the training we have in Spain. Another point is that rotation of personnel was very low. We stood with the same job on average of 2 years, which is above that of other countries. The lower cost of salaries making the country more competitive. But there are a number of investing variables that were not very convincing. On the other hand, HR managers told me that there is a temporary phase where anything goes. They engage people, but even if they don't go to the office, that's even better because they don't have interpersonal skills, for instance. But it seems that this is not what they are looking for in the long term. As regards regulation, things are changing. Well, is it enough? Probably not. Is there talent in Spain? Who of you thinks there's talent in Spain? Raise your hands. Of course there is. And some who are in a queue waiting to come in. So there's talent in Spain, and a lot. This is one of the examples. This study was based on the specialization index and scientific impact, because in the value chain we have science, which is also important. We have to consider a mentality or a mindset of abundance in order to allow things to improve. So this is a publication that's had a big impact. Spanish researchers here or abroad are publishing with a lot of impact. This is just an example because there are many. At the level of Europe, where we are competing with 18 countries, Germany, France, Estonia. So we have been winning championships for 4 years in a row. It's about a team of 10. They have to work as a team, and this involves sometimes individual work. Now the challenge to get a group of people to work as a team, as also part of the championship, is to be able to address the public and report in English how the issues and challenges were overcome. In this case, we won. The Spanish have won these editions. I don't know if any one of that team is here. Raise your hand. Well, maybe they're waiting to come in. Anyway, more data. Let's go to the proposal now. Why the electronic circuit of the printed board? Because this is a component. If you know a lot about electronics, well, you have a better chance. So a transformer is a basic transformer, AC, DC, from the socket of the main. So we have to transform it to a clean CC. If we want to transform the entire ecosystem to give us an output different to the input, we have to do a number of things using these components here. Let's continue with a metaphor for those who don't know a lot about electronics. Well, I will try to be simple. This is a diode that allows current through or not. If it is positive, it allows it through. If it's negative, it does not. So we start putting a component here. If we put another diode, but in the opposite direction, what we do is the current passes, but the negative current is transformed to positive. We change the pole. We use the frequency, but we're using the negative aspects to invert the situation. We invert the negative, so we see the negative things as an opportunity. That's the metaphor. So here we have a condenser that will support the state, the voltage that is, and I get a signal, which is something like a continuous signal. The problem is that here we have wrinkles, and the condenser, this condenser is terribly expensive. It's a quick, expensive solution without very good results. So if we want to change this ecosystem, we have to change a number of things. We have to make it cheaper. These type of condensers with these resistors will give us a signal which is very clean and which works well. It is compatible, but it also has a problem. If one of the components fails, so the whole thing goes down. And this is highly associated to real-life situations. And on the other hand, if the system destabilizes, well, we might have the opportunity to measure, because without measuring we cannot improve. We can measure at a point. We use an oscilloscope here, and I can measure the signal at different points to see if this is working properly. So this is an example I wanted to give to understand that we have an n number of measures that are developed and distributed in different places. This is not simple anymore, but we have to strike a balance. If one of the elements fails, we may not get the results or the output we want. So let us associate this. For example, measures that can be implemented. If anyone studied anything about innovation, open innovation, how do you transform this idea into a startup? So there are measures that you can implement, but they may not be enough. For example, the RSA conference in Spain, of San Francisco, I'm sorry, there's a Spanish pavilion of many countries as well as of Spain. So I promised you an algorithmic approach let's give you an equation, the Victor Cooper's equation. I invite you to take a look at this video of this coach. What he says is that in talent, the value of an individual is something that is added plus a multiplication. What is added is knowledge and skill, CNH, and the attitude multiplies, positively or negative. You can have someone with great knowledge with a negative attitude, and he will have an overall negative contribution, so may not be of interest. So the difference between serious, correct, and professional being a top talent is that one might have a people skill. One example, which is the attitude, which has a very broad margin. Let's get into the details of this equation. With Victor's permission, it's not very simple. Knowledge, technical and non-technical, as well as skills and experience. The people have memory, market has memory, university have even more memory. What I'm driving at is that the value of the professional is not only in the X, but also in the Y. Y is the multiplication factor. What does the Y comprise? Comprises attitude, but many more things related to attitude, but also ethics, integrity. I'm talking about the studies I showed you previously. Values, health. I've seen people who have taken Red Bull, 12 Red Bulls straight just to finish a job. You may have to be admitted to hospital after that. So win-win mindset, abundance mindset, adaptation to change, involvement. This may not have hardly any value because you have to develop skills. But this is the idea of success. If we have a positive amount of one, they compensate for the other. Here I would not like to focus on the lower part of the organization, but on the top, which is what I call the leaders. This is a set that comprises all of the above. It's not that a manager is ignorant on technical and on the technical part and takes decisions that are senseless for the techies. So this is something that we have to transform, and this is my personal opinion here, is a full stack criterion. So if you are the recruiters and you have to choose between two candidates, if you have one who, in addition to having knowledge of management and leadership, has also technical knowledge of the business. He can be a HR manager, and he has knowledge about the idiosyncrasy of the operation, of how things are done in cybersecurity. He will be able to understand much better a problem to provide a solution. Also negotiation, skills, leadership, vision, strategy. To put a strategy in action, because many times they're just a nice text, but we have to put them into action. Here we are all part of the same team, and we have to develop strategies jointly. Another important factor, which is empowerment, to be able to inspire other leaders. Abundance mindset. If I have another leader next to me, it's not he's competing with me, he's supporting me, and I am supporting him so that we can all grow. But the algorithm will become even more complicated, which factor I've been mentioning that is extremely important, with a view to the future, that is. The multidisciplinary concept. If we have knowledge, skill, experience in the sector of electronics, for instance, in addition to ethical hacking or programming knowledge. There are people who raise their hand in a Java lesson. They raise their hand and say, "I'm a philosopher." Okay, so what? You can also learn. So, in this case, it is very important. I will give this multidisciplinary character or characteristic a high level of importance because, for example, what I was saying earlier about the automotive industry that is requiring a lot of cybersecurity experts. So this is multidisciplinary and is highly valued. What I was talking earlier about the scarcity mindset and abundance mindset, I try to apply it, which is not always easy, but for scarcity mentality, I see quite a lot of it. In the end, we are always comparing each other and we feel threatened by someone else's success, and we have to have a mindset of abundance because in the end it'll be better for all of us because the pie is much bigger than what we think. It's not a question of taking a little bit because there is enough for everybody. Otherwise, we have had a good piece of pie. Believe me, this is very important for mental health. As regards empowerment, there's an important example I found in a book related to a ship, a leader of a destroyer that spends a long time at sea, and people get nervous, the crew gets nervous, and what the captain did, he empowered the people to make them responsible for their own problems as well as solutions. So they became part of the chain of the chain command. It's better to make them to participate this way instead of feeling victims. So this weekend, this past weekend, I held a conference with a member of this talent team, and I asked them for a number of questions. So I'm sure that many of the disparaging comments that were made are also true, but let's see if we have something that is positive. So I got a big surprise. I didn't give the names, but if you ask me, I can identify some authors of these comments. Without getting into full details, it seems that there's a lot of value given to talent in the interviews. It seems that things are changing. We haven't reached the end, but instead of getting junk job offers, things are getting better. They also talked about the leadership. The director position has to have a lot of conditions. So, conclusions. Well, I think let's be optimistic. We have good news for our sector. We have a lot of work to do. Everybody here is growing as a community, and I think it's a spectacular growth. That's 10 years. We're having the 10th anniversary of RootedCON. Well, I never thought this could grow this much, and this is because there's a lot of interest, and it's good news. However, everything is connected, and it's not as easy as it seems. Let's be wary of these comments over a beer about if A is bigger than B, then B is bigger than C. So I think we have to be able to self-criticize and be critical of what we hear. It is not either excessively complex, and we can all contribute, but this is the time factor is also key. And then again, the basic ingredients. Some variables add up, others multiply, and others are powerful. Now I'd like to close with a couple of slides. I think it's just 2 minutes left. A question in the McAfee study, they said that after passing the selection process, what is missing, what is it companies can't find? They seem to miss not the intruders, but the people who make it. They seem to find people who make intrusions, but people who detect intrusions, people who can make safe development, people who are able to implement a mitigation against attacks, not so much in ethical hacking, but also other skills, such as communicating adequately, programming in a fluent manner, managing teams, and collaborate. So, just a couple of phrases to finish. From authors I consider to be a reference, mentors, Stephen Covey, who died unfortunately a few years ago. But anyway, his books are available and are very valuable. This happens every day. The first phrase, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule. The key lies in scheduling your priorities, because we do many things that are not efficient, that do not contribute anything. Also, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So you know what the main thing is. The family is one, success, your job, but I think health is one of the main things. This was made by my wife. This Photoshop said, what we believe in, we create. If we want to create things, we have to believe them first in order to create them. I think that is important. So, quote number 3, managing, well, self-management. Many times we expect someone to come and resolve our problems. That is a victim mentality. But if we take a step forward and we come out of our comfort zone, we may be able to help others if we own the situation. It is up to us if we want to go from victimism to responsibility. In the world of hacking, this is frequent. We always go out and are proactive, but it's important to act. I finished with Tony Robbins. I'm particularly like him. He's been a coach of many international leaders. He said that many times when we address a change, a project, if it fails, the fault always lies on resources, time, money, but the fault is not there. It is of the talent that we've deployed. If we've had sufficient talent, we could have avoided that. So I finish with the equation, which is an approach. It's not an axiom, but it is an approach, and this is a way to share my experience and my proposal. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Raúl.
Thank you very much, Raul. This year, as a novelty, you may have noticed some microphones around. So those of you who'd like to ask questions, please go there and stand on the queue. All right, there are microphones here. Okay, right on top and bottom of the room. Okay. So what is the level of maliciousness? Yeah. Allow me for the question. I buy everything that you have said. I very much like your approach. You have given me food for thought. My question is as follows. Why the average salary continues to be 20,000 per year? There is significant talent here. So don't you think that there is like high outsourcing? And if this is so and this is a reality, theory says that the trend in 5 years' time will be that the average salary will go up a lot in the last 5 years. I encourage you at INCIBE to offer annual data so that people can check out those data over time. So thank you very much for your question, Roman. So it's a very difficult question to answer. Yet I will try to give you my feel. Data that I shared with you were general data. So these are variables per country, influenced by many factors. So, for instance, we may not have car makers. However, the strategy has been changed, and the country is no longer manufacturing cars, but manufacturing parts. So perhaps this is related to economic intelligence. That's one of the main topics out there. It is true to say that the trend has been small but upward, and I don't think we will go up from 22,000 to 100,000, but if we take an overview at it, I feel that the trend will be an upward trend because we are all aware of the high talent in cybersecurity in Spain. However, the problem is the brain drain that we are seeing here in Spain. So in the automotive sector, if there is a growth, even if we do manufacture cars and we manufacture car parts, then there should be a growth there. But measures are to be implemented because this doesn't happen in itself or by itself. We can all contribute to that. Careful with negative messages because investors may see it as a lack of stability. So careful with those of you living abroad. Try to be good ambassadors and to talk about the talent here in Spain. You know that, well, many people are involved in startups and then others come in, invest, and take that talent away. So it's a question of convincing investors. It's not only about training, education, and investment only. So what is general change is required, and that will take time. Time is an important factor. So are there any questions in the room? If there are no questions, okay, I'll ask a question. So regarding investors, which I feel are critical for development and growth of talent and activities. So what we've seen with H2020, at the end of the day, that money goes to IBEX 35 companies, never goes top down. So the money should be received by those who need it, not those who send it into research and development and allocate it to the investment or turnover of a different department. So I have quite a lot of experience with H2020, and meaningful changes are underway. Changing things at the level of a country is easier than to change it at the level of multiple countries. It is often and widely said that often the knowledge is in the hands or is owned by the SMEs expertise. We know that there are many big companies and SMEs cannot attend those meetings. So those of us who can represent those small companies and can go to meetings, we will make our best to reverse that, to change that. Oh, right, there is a question in the room. Hello, can you hear me? I'd like to know that if what is happening with salaries is that we are demystifying university titles, and perhaps we have now matched up people with university degrees with people with no university degrees, and then when it comes to salaries, we have kind of evened that. Well, actually, to be honest, I'm not very much responsible for that. So I started 20 years ago. I was way below that. I started off in HP company. I used to have many functions there. Then at that time there was kind of a growth. But so now if you are mixing a person with a PhD and a person with no degree, you don't pay them the same. So in this algorithm approach, we are not talking that much about the actual title or degree. There came a time where everything or anything went. Sometimes So a person that may not have a university degree may have as much knowledge or more knowledge than others that those who have gone to university. So sometimes, how do you? So it's a question sometimes of attitude. It is the same as tests for directors. There are mathematical tests. Sometimes it is not fully related to his actual job, but it is a question of testing the behavior or attitude of the person. If you don't have a university degree or any kind of degree and you have the skills that the company need, great. However, there is a change in the trend now because so you may have a niche expertise, you may be very, very good at reversing, but perhaps instead of, I don't know, being employed by a company, you will be a wonderful freelance and they will hire you work. But sometimes if you work in a company, they may want you to be more multidisciplinary, to have multiple skills, and perhaps they not take that much into account the actual title that you have, but other skills. I feel that salaries should continue to grow, need to continue to grow. It's a question of time. At the end of the day, all together, we have to be more positive and build up things together. So many of you will be employed and others will be self-employed. So let us accept reality, let us take in this challenge, and then let us build it up all together. Any other questions? Any other person who dares to ask a question? Oh, another question there. Hello, Mr. Raul and Roman. Hello, everyone. So the guild, so to speak, of security, or the sector of security, has a number of steps or value chain, as it is often referred to. We often see that in corporate markets, in companies, and in big public administrations. So we have, on the one hand, the buyer, then we have the service provider, integrator, etc. Then we have the wholesalers, and then we have the manufacturers. Let us put it like that. In manufacturers, we also include developers, etc. Have you forecast, are you considering within this ecosystem studying the main factors that are preventing salaries from going up? So this is not our responsibility alone. We have asked that question within a set of bigger questions, and we have reached agreements. So we also sat down competitors, we sat down people in the meeting from different sectors. So even competitors share things. They all want to grow and to improve, to enter new markets. And one of the factors that was debated was salaries. Another one was training and education. In those meetings, HR directors also put on the table some of the challenges that they were facing. Some argued that they would be ready to pay. However, in some cases, they would like to outsource that because of the top talent has some also scarcity of some skills. But one of the things that was shared was just what I'm saying. Many people are only business oriented. So, but the profit of a company should not be at the expense of people's salaries, should be at the expense of company being more competitive. This is an interesting circle. I have a colleague, or I know a person who was working in a service company. He was involved in a project, and he only stayed for 3 months because he got an excellent offer for another company. So he changed 4 times, and the first project, well, the first time he was hired by the first company that he left, and then when he was hired for the first time, he was paid twice as much. How can we have such a high turnover? We see the employers here, the Rooted hiring people, but that is not reflected in the salary, whether we are talking about employees or people hired on a freelance basis. That's a very good question. I will be basing part of my answer in the presentation. As you said before, some people may decide to hire back a person after a few months. In 6 months, they will be hiring the very same person, and then they are ready to pay more. The cost for replacing that person, had the company retained the person, would have been better to pay him higher right from the start. So at the end of the day, the solution is a holistic solution, global, overall, comprehensive solution. Let us everyone understand, from human resources up to managers, as well as people with talent. So to me, to increase my salary, I've always changed companies. Investors like to see lower turnover. So I see lots of turnover of personnel, but it is okay, it is legit. So we all deserve to grow and to take up the opportunities that come to us. We are focusing very much on the salary, and actually it is the main factor or reason for people to switch jobs. But it is not the one and only factor. So if the person has come back to the company, well, first of all, it is because he left on a good point, then it is also because the company realized late that it needed that talent, and at the end of the day, I feel it was a win-win situation. The thing is that we are at a transient situation. I'm more into strategies and be strategic with yourself and with your career. And companies should be very clear on that replacing a person, hiring a person for the second time is very, very expensive. Everyone in the value chain should be aware, should be realized. All right, so thank you very much, Raul, for your time and for your contribution. We've gone a bit over time.